From the Great Central Fire. Wow, what a great special episode we have today as we bring in our new director from Camp Kooch, Jim McAllister. And I've also asked Hugh Haller to join me in hosting duties, so it's great to have Hugh back on the show. On today's episode, we get into depth at what Jim's been up to since he left camp back in the 90s. We talked about John Pohl and some memories about him. Jim also talks about his first week in the role and what that's been like. We set the record straight about some token card race history, which was great to hear. Hugh asked some impactful questions about Jim's experience with camp, so make sure you stay tuned into that. And Jim lets us know what he's most excited about as we head into this upcoming summer. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this great episode from the Great Central Fire. From the Great Central Fire today, what a great podcast episode we have. A new chapter in the future and a very exciting time for Camp Kooch-i-ching as we're going to meet our new Director of Camper Experience and Development, Jim McAllister. And along with me today will be Hugh Haller, the President of the Camping and Education Foundation, is a podcast host so we can all get to know Jim better. But Jim, hey, welcome, man. It's great to see you again, and great to have you back at camp. This has got to be a lot of fun for you.
Oh my gosh, Coles. I can't even begin to tell you. I am beyond excited. Hugh came out here last week, and we kind of put the cherry on top of this thing, and I have been floating on clouds ever since. It is a lifelong dream come true. Quite honestly, it's something that I really, never even allowed myself to imagine, right? I mean, stepping into the shoes of a Tim Heinle, who could do that? That's just such a big job with so much responsibility, and oh my gosh, it's been an amazing ride. That's for sure. I could not possibly be more excited to be here. And I've been saying to everybody, I feel like I'm coming home. Camp has always been my home, and it's amazing. It's been, quite frankly, overwhelming.
Yeah. Well, the MacAllister name, I've talked to some people on these podcasts, and the names that come through camp, there's so many great traditional names. Your name is one as well. I know your father was there back in the 60s, the mid 60s, and I know my dad knew him well. I'm sure he's excited. But we want to talk a little bit about, I knew you as a little young camper when you were there. You've lapped me now. You're way smarter than I am now, and but I think it's good that we all know, kind of your background, Jim.
Yeah.
We know you were a camper. We knew you were a camper there, but, tell us your professional career, where you went to college, and then after college, kind of what led you to this point now.
Well, bear down. First of all, I went to the University of Arizona in Tucson, Arizona. So for all those Kansas fans out there who we made your week a couple nights ago, getting knocked off. Oh man, talk about a basketball game. Coles, I know, obviously your background in hoops, and so bear down, let's go. One loss is okay. We're hoping to be peaking come March. So, University of Arizona down in Tucson was absolutely phenomenal. Loved the desert, obviously grew up in the desert. Tucson was an amazing place. I was fortunate enough to go to the Eller College of Management, where I studied business, and loved it. Couldn't have possibly asked for a better college experience. It was quite frankly amazing. My senior year of college, one of my very, very best friends from Camp Kooch-i-ching, another name that I'm sure has come up on this podcast more than once, John Pohl made a trip through Tucson, and we were hanging out, maybe having a couple of blue pops one evening, and he looks at me and says, "Mac, I'm moving to Montana and I'm buying a bar, and I need you to come with me." I bartended my way all the way through college, and he said, "I need a guy who I can trust, somebody who I can put behind my bar and help me kind of get this thing up and running. what do you think about moving to Whitefish, Montana? And, I had never heard of Whitefish, Montana. I had no idea what that was going to be. But when your best friend tells you he's buying a bar and let's go, you get on that horse and you ride. So graduated from college and packed my stuff and jumped in a truck that was given to me by another camp name. A guy named Troy Balcer gave me that truck. That's another great story. But drove up to Montana, showed up at John's house, and we proceeded the long process of opening up a bar on Central Avenue in downtown Whitefish, Montana. That's one of those places that will always be in my heart. The name of that bar was the Paddle Axe Saloon. You could probably guess where the name came from. And I worked with John in that bar for a number of years. Bartended for John in the evenings. And at that same time, I opened up a fly fishing guide service. And, camp obviously is where my love for fishing came from. And so really that was kind of the start of making things come full circle. Started guiding in Whitefish, eventually found my way to guiding up in Alaska. I worked at just a phenomenal lodge, one of the greatest fly fishing lodges on the planet. It's called Crystal Creek on Bristol Bay. And I mean, that was just phenomenal, Jeff. You'd wake up every morning, get on a float plane and fly to the middle of nowhere, land somewhere, hike in. We had just incredible clients. I guided the Golden Bear up there. Dick Cheney, George Strait, all kinds of just really, really cool folks came through that lodge. I did that for a number of years. And then my wife, my amazing, amazing wife, who I met down in Tucson when she was finishing her master's, I promised her that eventually, after a couple of years in Montana, that she could finish her dream, which was getting her PhD. And my wife is a brilliant, brilliant woman and was given a full ride scholarship to go to college at the University of Idaho, over there in Moscow, Idaho. So I was up in Alaska that summer, and my wife, ventured her way over to Moscow, bought a house, and I showed up, no idea what I was going to do. Showed up in October, not really sure which way was up. I'd only ever been to Moscow once when my wife was interviewing. Cool little town, tons of fishing, tons of biking, just an amazing part of the country. And, walked hat in hand into this teeny tiny little front office of a company called NRS. That's a short for Northwest River Supplies, and had absolutely one of the greatest mentors of my entire life who I met there. Bill Parks is the founder of that company. He started NRS in his garage, and that was the beginning of the next 20 years of my life. NRS thought I was such an incredible human being that they saw fit to offer me $7.25 an hour to answer telephones. It was pretty special, pretty big day. I went home and told my wife, and at the time we had a couple mortgages, and she was like, what you can't work for $7.25 an hour. So I was also a bartender. I used to bartend over in Pullman. That was back in the day when they were still allowing people to smoke in the bars in Idaho, and it was too much. People smoked in John's bar, and I'd been around enough cigarette smoke. So I was driving every evening over to Pullman, Washington, and bartending all night, and then waking up in the morning and answering telephones, working at NRS. Like I said, Bill Parks became an immediate friend. He is one of those people who they will write stories about. Unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago, but Bill and I became fast friends. We did a Middle Fork trip on the Middle Fork of the Salmon together. And that was the beginning of just an incredible relationship. He took me under his wing, and eventually I became a sales rep. They had a very small wholesale department when I joined, and we dove in. That was one of those jobs that I worked 7 days a week. A lot of days it was 15, 16 hours. It was a teeny tiny company back then. You'd sell stuff all day on the telephones or, via the internet. And then we'd all go out to the warehouse and pick all those orders and box them. And there were days that, we'd be there till 2-3 o'clock in the morning packing orders. NRS slowly but surely started to grow and grow. And I eventually became the sales manager for North America. And after a handful of years doing that, I became the director of sales. And again, it was one of those instances in life, right place, right time. I was surrounded by an absolutely phenomenal group of people at NRS. The CEO who ran that company, the chief operating officer, everybody there was absolutely incredible. They honestly, a lot of those guys reminded me of camp guys. Work ethic like you've never seen. Guys who are fully bought in. The colors of the rafts that we make at NRS are bright blue and yellow. And the saying around NRS was always, we bleed blue. And those guys truly did. It was just an incredible group of humans to get to work with. I was fortunate enough to be able to work with, our director of international sales and spent a lot of time traveling around Europe and Asia and South America with him, expanding the brand. NRS was just amazing. After a number of years, Bill Parks made the decision. He didn't have any kids. And, a lot of people in our country, right? You think of what's the American dream these days. Well, you build a company or you start an app and then you take it public, right? You cash in and find yourself to a sailboat or whatever your dream retirement is. Well, that wasn't in Bill's DNA. Bill was one of these guys who, one day called a meeting at the headquarters and said, "Hey, I don't have any kids. I eat 3 meals a day now. I don't need any more. And I'd like to give this company back to you all, the people that built it." And so Bill converted NRS over into an ESOP. And it was, again, one of those experiences going through that transition, getting to be a part of that company as it was growing and also changing hands was just phenomenal. So people were already bought in, but now we're all owners. And now you've got skin in the game, right? You start getting these stock reports annually and you're accruing shares and all these sales numbers actually for people, everybody in the building, whether you're answering phones or packing orders or, one of the people out, chasing these orders down in the world. All of us were part of this huge family that we're all scratching and clawing, fighting for the same thing. And so it was just amazing. And after a number of years being there, again, I had just had nothing but an amazing experience there. This is about 2.5 years ago. My folks called me and they were, transitioning sort of. My dad is one of these guys who, he'll work until his last day on this earth if it's up to him. But my parents called and said, "Hey, we've got this amazing opportunity. We're interested in sort of trying to potentially sell this business eventually. And we need somebody with your business acumen. We don't want to go out and try to hire some guy. Is there any chance you'd be willing to come home and come back to the family firm and help us kind of spin this thing up and try to get it to a place where we can turn it around and sell it to either another rep group or another business somewhere out there?" And that was amazing. Absolutely amazing to be able to go home. I was one of those kids who went to boarding school. I left home when I was 15 years old and, had been very close with my family, but hadn't been, really seen my parents on a day-to-day for a very, very long time. So went back to Scottsdale, Arizona and dove back into my family business, which is a sales and marketing agency that serviced architects and designers. It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. Getting to work with my dad was one of the coolest things I've ever done in my life. Getting to work with both my mom and my dad, but just seeing how they work, I'm so proud of what they were able to build. We would walk into, some of the largest architectural firms in the world, the Genslers of the world, people with global firms all over the place. And a sales guy, you couldn't get in these places for anything, right? I'd walk up to the front desk and say, "Hey, I'm here with MacAllister and Associates." And these folks would just go crazy. "Oh my gosh, we love your dad. Everyone knows your dad." That's great. I was just so proud to be able to walk in and, our family name meant so much to so many of these people, the relationships my parents had built. And, pretty funny. Some of these gals would tell me, you can't come in until you tell us a joke. My dad has got a million stupid dad jokes, Coles. I mean, like the dumbest jokes that you've ever heard in your life, but people love them. I'll tell you what, I've been, a sales guy for 25 years, and I've never ever seen a human being disarm a room faster than my dad with some joke that I'm sitting in the corner, just, hands in my face, and everybody just immediately melts. Guard goes away. They're, oh, we love these guys. We can trust these guys. Come on in. What are you selling? Yeah. So it was amazing. It was absolutely phenomenal. And, the bittersweet aspect of that part of my life is we ended up actually being able to sell it after about 19 months of me being down there. So things kind of really happened very quickly. Again, my parents had just built something that was so phenomenal. And so after, we sold pieces and parts of that business to a handful of different agencies, and kind of found myself after, we sold that business, I kind of found myself scratching my head a little bit, what's next? What am I going to do now type thing? And so very fortunate to have a lot of good connections in the outdoor industry. Couple of very, very dear friends, a guy I knew who was at Patagonia for a very long time. And another buddy of mine who was the North American sales manager for a company called Sims Fishing. They called me after I was unemployed. I told my wife, I'm taking the winter off. I'm going to go back to my roots. I'm going to be a ski bum. I'm hanging out. You're going to get so sick of me. I mean, my wife and I are we always joke ships in the night. I traveled so much. I mean, my days at NRS, I was on the road a lot of times, 200 days a year. So really, really chasing. And I was home for a week after I left MacAllister and Associates, and these friends of mine asked me, hey, would you be willing to help us expand our business into some larger format accounts? I have, a lot of dear friends who are at Bass Pro, Academy Sports, Shields, kind of bigger formatted box stores like that. And so I spent the last, I guess it was about 4 months working for a company called Duck Camp, based down in Austin, Texas, just an incredible company, building phenomenal gear. And so, it was a short window, but it was amazing. We accomplished a lot. Proud to say that those guys are going live in Bass Pro here, upcoming very shortly. And so it's been an amazing run, Jeff. I've been so incredibly fortunate, so lucky to have, met the people that I've met and had the experiences that I've had. It's been absolutely phenomenal. I feel very fortunate.
Yeah. And you've still been close to camp because you've now been, you served on the board for 3 or 4 years, weren't you? I don't know what the years were, but you've still been, even through all of this, you've still been close to the camp.
Oh man, it was so cool. Obviously NRS is just this phenomenal company, right? Believes in service, believes in giving back, and was fortunate enough to get an email from one of the Arctic trips. One of the Arctic trips going all the way back, maybe 8-10 years ago now. They reached out asking, hey, is there any way that you guys would be willing to sponsor us with a little bit of gear? And so my wife and I have been sponsoring these Arctic trips going on about 10 years now.
That's great.
Not only setting guys up with NRS, who again, just, builds everything that you could ever possibly imagine needing to take on an Arctic canoe expedition. But my wife and I, again, coming up at camp, feeling just that huge connection, we're able to donate a lot of that product for those trips. And so stayed connected that way. And then also, obviously, as you mentioned, it was about 4 years ago that Hugh and JR reached out to me and said, hey, would you have any interest in joining the board? And, beyond flattered to get that phone call, and couldn't wait to get signed up. So yeah, it's been an amazing run, getting to connect, a lot of really, really great people, reconnected with folks like John Great, and obviously my good friend, Hank Bangert, has been sitting on that board, obviously the Ogeechee board for a long time. And so, yeah, it's been awesome to stay connected that way. Texts, of course, back and forth with old friends, the Josh Jolins of the world, of course, Mike Walsh's of the world. But yeah, it's been the last 4 years that I've really gotten back into it, because there were a number of years that I was just running 1 million miles a minute and didn't necessarily have enough time or bandwidth to focus on things that I loved.
Yeah. Well, you said something, you mentioned a name, and I'm going to bring this up. Now you have a new role here with the camper experience and development as the director at camp. And just as a former coach, Michael, or Jimmy, I'm sorry. There's nothing better than working with kids. I mean, the feeling you get knowing that you helped to move somebody, is unbelievable. And I'm going to go back to John Pohl and talk about his dad here in a second. I've talked to a lot of people about the meaning of what the definition of a coach is. And that's kind of what this role is, and what camp does for kids is that it coaches them. And the best definition I've ever heard of a good coach or what a coach is it's something that takes people from one place to another, which is interesting. They're referring to that obviously as some sort of vehicle, but as a coach in that term. But really, coaching people, that's what you're doing, aren't you?
Oh, my.
You're taking them from one place in their life to another. And that's what you're getting ready to do, Jim. And there's going to be no better feeling in the world for you than what you're going to do at camp. And I bring that up because I want to tell you this story about Rich Pohl. John Pohl, one time, this is a true story. I'll never forget this as long as I live. John was working at camp, and it might have been right before he just said, "Hey, I'm going to go buy a bar in Montana," but he said, "Dad, I guess it's probably time for me to get a real job and do something that's real." And his dad looked at him. His dad told me this story. Rich told me the story. He looked at John. He said, "You know what, John? There's no important job in this world than what you're doing here this summer at Kooch. And that's working with kids. There's no more important job that you'll ever have the rest of your life than what you're doing at Camp Kooch-i-ching." So I think I just can't wait for you to get in. I know you got a lot of energy. You're great with people, and these kids are going to be lucky to have you. And, I think it's going to be a great thing. But I just wanted to bring that up since you mentioned John's name. And, of course, they're all together now, him and his parents. We miss them all terribly, but it's going to be great for you. It's going to really fill your bucket, so to speak, I think, and you're going to do great. You got great people around you too, Jim.
Yeah, I sure do. And, I appreciate you telling that story. Of course, John and Rich are, two people that I love so much. And I can tell you for sure that they've been looking down. I think they're sitting up there with, Mr. Heinle, smiling down on us on this beautiful Whitefish, Montana. Just, it's been a very emotional run for me. I said to Hugh that there's so much weight for me that comes with this job. I'm not going to be able to wake up and put my shoes on for the rest of my life without thinking about John and how much this means, his legacy, and how much this means for me to step into this role. And, it's crazy that you say that there's nothing more important than what I'm going to be doing. And I'll tell you what, I've been in this seat for 3.5 days now. And I made my first set of priorities here was to pick up the telephone and introduce myself to every single family, every parent of all the kids who are enrolled for this upcoming summer. And I've probably spoken with about 40 or 50 families so far. And I'm here to tell you, Coles, the last 4 days have been the most fulfilling of my entire professional career. Everyone that I talk to says the same thing, which is camp is the best part of our life. Camp is the thing that made my son the best version of himself that we've ever seen. These are parents of prep campers that I've been talking to, the last couple of days. And so you're talking about 8, 9, 10-year-old kids and their parents are referencing camp as the greatest thing that's ever happened to their son. And it has absolutely filled my heart and filled my soul these last 4 days. I knew that what I was stepping into was going to be this fulfilling, but I had no idea how impactful it was going to be. Talking to folks saying, Johnny's been home now for 4 months and we literally are counting the days until we start to pack that trunk and he heads back north for the summer. So
it's great to hear. And it's just, and as you're there for time, and hopefully it's a long time, Jim, to see a young kid that's a prep, and we've all been in these shoes. I mean, all three of us, where we don't know what in the world we're doing. We're not sure we want to be here. What in the world? I got to go out on this trip. What? I mean, and then to see them grow into young human beings and successful human beings, and to watch them change and grow, and then to get invited to their wedding when it's just the most fulfilling thing in the world to see that happen. And boy, you're gonna have a bird's eye view, man. It's gonna be, and I think they're gonna have some great leadership. I really do, and I think the kids are and the families moving forward are going to be, see how lucky they are to have you in this position. So,
well, I can't tell you how much that means coming from you. I mean, obviously, your dad was one of my mentors and one of my role models. I did a lot of canoe trips with Bugsy and Tom Dupree and Lou Galley. Those three kind of teamed up for a number of years up there together. And, I did the exploratory Allen water with those guys. And I mean, your dad played such a huge role in my life. And so hearing that come from you, it means the world. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. Well,
sure. And you started, I was looking back here. I think we got to bring up some things here. You mentioned a couple of names, I think. And then eventually I want to get Hugh into this thing. I know we got some questions for you, just to help, the family get to know Jim McAllister better. But, you started in '88 in Cabin 9, and that probably kicked off a relationship. I know you had a close relationship with a good friend of mine, Troy Balcer.
Yeah.
I know you lived with him and Gail for a while in Minneapolis.
Yeah. I've had a lot of really, really emotional conversations here in the last week. And when I picked up the telephone and called Troy and Gail and told them that I was stepping into this role, I think we sat on the phone, all three of us, for an hour, just crying. And, just reminiscing over those years and that time. And yeah, Troy was my first cabin counselor. It's the CIT in that cabin was Tim Heinle, Tim's youngest son, and a guy named Nelson Moore, who I'm sure he's floating around there. I haven't talked to Nelson in probably, 35 years or so, but, and just met an amazing group of people. Blair Walsh was in that cabin. I mean, a lot of guys that go way, way, way back.
Jeremy Witham
was in that cabin.
Jeremy Witham.
His claim to fame that summer. I mean, I don't know if you guys remember those crazy Converse that went like all the way up to your knee. Does anyone, am I just swimming alone?
I don't remember those.
Well, Witham had these crazy shoes. And that's what I remember about Jeremy Witham when I first that summer. It was, but yeah, all the way back to Cabin 9. I mean, oh my gosh, could you imagine, is there a prettier cabin on the island?
No, it's just the greatest view there is.
Yeah. A kid coming from the desert of Arizona, I showed up at Cabin 9 and, of course, my dad's, one of my dad's service projects while he was up at Camp Kooch-i-ching, he was one of the guys that worked on the high dive, which is obviously right out my front door there in Cabin 9. And so, there was a lot of legacy for me when I was going to camp, and certainly I was just wrapped in warm arms. The Peffer brothers were both there. They were counselors then. And,
oh yeah.
Matt Filoon, he's a guy I remember. I went home that summer with this giant steal your face drawn in permanent marker on my chest. And my mother was like, "What is that?" I'm like, "Mom, it's for Jerry." And, my parents kind of shaking their head.
Man. That's funny. And Roden was in there, Sean Malloy.
Yeah, my boy.
I mean, this is, if you look at this cabin, those are you, yourself, and Jeremy and Sean and all these guys. They're still heavily involved with camp from that same cabin back in '88. It's great to see,
Yeah.
And then you hook back up with Troy in Cabin 1, and where you guys won the token card race in '92.
Going away, Coles. I mean, the second place was so far behind us. I mean, shouts out to Cabin 1 that year. I don't know if any cabin has ever won that many token cards, but I doubt it.
Actually, talk to Jeff about that, because I think Jeff and Heinle in BJ's cabin might have you.
We had a good year.
Have you on that
was in that was in 1982.
Oh wow! Oh, wow.
Yeah, we had a guy named Matt DeWine and Tim Stewart and Steve Heinle and myself, and there were 3 other guys, Bill Myrink and Mike McLaughlin and Scott Jepson, and we went on a tear the final week. We won like everything, everything there was to win. We won the whole week.
Yeah,
and just ran away with it. So
cool.
It was fun.
I would be remiss if I didn't also call out back in those days, Cabin 1. That cabin was so stacked that during Capture the Flag, we would do Cabin 1 versus the entire junior camp and win. And again, I got to give a shout out to my boy Josh Dolan, because he was like, I think when we were in Cabin 1 as juniors, I'm 90% sure that Dolan could grow a full beard. He was that dude. You're like, bro. I mean, he was an animal back in the day. So we just set Josh in front of the flag and be like, no one's getting by my man. So
I remember Josh. I do remember. But then going into your, this is what's interesting too, because you brought his name up already too, Hank Bangert. Here we are. Hank is the president of the Camping and Education Management Board. You now the director of Kooch-i-ching. You two were together running Red Lodge when you were a senior. You was the president and Hank is the secretary, I believe, back in 94 maybe. No, 95.
Yeah.
And even prior to that. But here's some of the leadership things that you had going on, Jim. You actually were in charge of the Saturka Society the year before when you were an intermediate.
Yeah.
So you started getting these leadership roles slowly as you got older and ready to deal with them. And now here we are. But you and Hank, I mean, here we are back again, full circle.
Pretty cool.
It is. It's really neat, I think.
I also,
and what a great guy Hank is.
Oh my gosh, love him so much. And again, I gotta call it out here. We had the record. Hank and I also had the record for the Around the Island canoe race that summer. And I don't know, I've gone back through some records. Apparently someone beat us, but I don't know how that could have happened. I'm calling shenanigans there. But Hank put me in his bow and said, paddle harder, mister. And I had, that was an amazing couple of years for me. My senior year, of course, like anyone having the opportunity to go to Hudson Bay. I had one of my dearest friends, another great name, Taylor Broderick. He and I somehow managed to get into a canoe together on that Seal River trip. And I mean, we had literally such a great trip, but Taylor and I would set off in the morning and, he and I had a lot of 35, 45 minute breaks waiting for the rest of the trip. I mean, he was just such a stud. I still is a stud, but that was an amazing opportunity to get to be there with those guys. And, Jeff Horner was my counselor, cabin counselor. And then obviously my trip head as well on that trip to Hudson Bay, and another just incredible man, dear friend who really was one of those people that throughout my college years, I really leaned on Jeff. He was one of those guys who was always chasing more education. And after he finished his MBA down at Miami, of Ohio, we just stayed very, very close. And anytime that I would run into something at business school, Jeff, this calc or whatever it is, accounting, anyone who's got a business degree, my gosh, accounting 101 was one of those things that almost killed me. And I spent a lot of late nights on the telephone with my friend Jeff Horner, getting coached up on P&L and all the rest of it. So amazing.
You should have called Tim Heinle. You should have called it. Here was Tim's advice: debits by the wall, credits by the window. That's how he figured that out. But hey, and I want to bring this up too, because you brought Nelson Moore, probably the best crossword puzzle master I've ever met. So why I bring him up is the boy's a winner. You're getting ready to join a group, I believe. I just talked to Tim Downey a little bit ago. They're up there getting ready. That was started years ago by Steve Upson and Tom Dupree. Tom, who you mentioned tripping with, and we would go out to the ice house and fish in the ice house, a handful of us, and Tom Dupree and Nelson Moore, that you could ask them any crossword clue and they got it. I mean, the hardest, like the Sunday New York Times crossword puzzle, they could do in like 25 minutes. It was over.
Yeah.
And I couldn't even pronounce the words that the question was being. I mean, I had no idea what they were talking about. It was just I'm like, these guys need to go on Jeopardy or something. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But anyway, I know you're getting ready to go up there. Have you been up there on the island with ice on the lake before?
I have, yeah. As you know, I was fortunate enough to go to the Blake School in Minneapolis for high school. And during high school, I loved to take photographs. And so I got to go up a couple of winters just kind of on some solo missions and shot a ton of black and white photographs a couple of winters. And then once I was finally old enough, so obviously Troy was part of that, crew that kind of started the Boys of Winter as well. And he was doing that when I was in high school. And I was never invited because I was too young, right? It was, there were some blue pops being enjoyed and so on and so forth. But so this will be my actual first time at Kooch for the true Boys of Winter. And I don't
that's a lot bigger.
I know. I saw 40 guys. I don't know if I'm prepared. Yeah. I'm not in as good a beer drinking shape as I once was. So I'm going to have to work pretty hard to keep up, I think.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to tell one story about that real quick. It's funny what you're talking about Troy. And then I want to get Hugh in here because we want to ask some questions here to get a little bit of more about you. But the old Rainy Lake Lodge where the girls' camp is now was a resort back in the day, and they were up there for Boys of Winter. Obviously, it was closed down. They knew the owner, Jerry Bergvall, knew the owner, or whatever. So I don't know if you probably don't remember this because you were too young, but at the old Rainy Lake Lodge in the bar area, there were all these mounted fish from people that caught big northerns, walleyes, largemouth, small, whatever, all these different fish are across the wall. So they were going to take a picture, and I've seen the picture. Steve Upson has it somewhere, or had it. God rest his soul as well. But they all went and grabbed the fish and had it wrapped around their head, and they posed. There was like 7 of them. Well, there was only 6 fish on the wall. So Pete Peffer, who runs into the kitchen and grabs a St. Paul's fish stick, frozen fish stick that's this long. It's holding the fish stick in the picture. All these guys got these huge pikes and walleyes. Here's Pepper standing there with the St. Paul fish stick in his hand. So it's just, I think of Troy and all those guys. I mean, they're great friends of mine. They're so much fun. And I miss my days with them. And I could go into a long story about Uppy's bachelor party. We flew up and stayed with Troy and Gail at their house. It was just funny. Yeah. But I want to get Hugh in here, and Hugh's got some things we'd like to put in front of you, and I can't wait to hear this. And Hugh, I'm going to turn this over to you for a little bit and let you go with your questions here.
All right. Well, thanks, Jeff. I could just sit here all day and listen to this. And not to burst your bubble, but that Round Island record, that's called the Ronimus Brothers. That's why you're not on the board anymore.
Yeah, they must have been studs.
None of us could compete with the Ronimus Brothers. They were absolutely amazing. I apologize in advance for my sort of deep-throated voice. I've been, I think, going out to Whitefish, Jim. You definitely you put me under on the boiler place ice cross country ski loop that we did, but no, it was a heck of a lot of fun. So series of questions, and really none of these are coming from left field, but what I love for parents out there to just understand you a little bit better through the lens of how you care about their kids and that they can trust you and invest in that relationship. Because at the end of the day, we always talk about, what this is really all about is parents giving up their most precious cargo to us for a summer and what that means. And any of us that have ever been in this role, whether it's working or as a parent, understands just how challenging that is. So these questions are kind of coming from that perspective. So I'm just going to start. We're going to go full circle. Tell me, what was your very first memory about Camp Kooch-i-ching?
Oh man. All right. I'm going to try to get through this without too much emotion here. So my very first memory of Camp Kooch-i-ching actually starts before I get to the island. I'm 8 years old. And as I told you guys, as everyone should know, my dad and all 3 of his brothers grew up going to Osaka and then all went to Kooch-i-ching. So before I ever went to camp, I knew what camp was. I'd heard the lore, I'd heard the stories, I'd heard the names. And I'll never forget my dad taking me to the airport. And, this is back in the day when your dad could walk you all the way up to the, up to the gate. And my dad, was this big college football player guy, suit and tie guy my whole life. And, he takes me up to the terminal and, leans down and just gives me a big hug. One of those big hugs that your dad gave you that really just squeezed a little bit harder and maybe held on for a little bit longer, and just kind of his way of saying, I love you and you're going to be fine. And my, I'm scared. My eyes are welling up with tears. And I look up at my dad and he says, you're going to be fine. No matter what happens, you just carry your load and everything else will work out. And, he kind of spins me around and slaps me on the butt, and I'm heading down the walkway, holding the flight attendant's hand. And I'm thinking to myself, what the heck is this load? What's this load I'm supposed to carry? Like, is that in my trunk? Did I forget something? I don't know what's going on here, but I show up at camp and, get to cabin 9, get checked in, and no one says anything to me about this load. So I think maybe I dodged a bullet. Well, it wasn't that much longer when we head out on our first canoe trips, right? And, we're get on the Kooch-i-ching, and, I'm thinking to myself, this canoe trip thing, everyone said it was going to be so hard. I felt like I was on Royal Botanica. I mean, guys got their shirts off, we're getting suntans, we're hanging out, the whole deal. Finally get to where we're going, get dropped off, jump in a canoe. And Coles can attest to this. My first few summers up at camp, if I weighed 60 pounds soaking wet in boots, I mean, I was a little kid. And, I'm sitting in the middle, so I'm on the Wanigan, and if my paddle reached the water, I'm surprised. I mean, the term, I wish I could claim lily dipper, but I don't even know if I was getting the paddle in the water to dip a lily. I mean, I'm just kind of doing my thing, floating through the most beautiful country I've ever seen in my entire life, just rolling. This whole canoe tripping thing is a breeze. Well, sure enough, we eventually get to this portage trail, and, everyone hits the beach and people start unloading stuff. And Troy Balcer was, again, my sternsman in my first canoe. And we get there and, guys are doing stuff. I'd been to cruising school. I kind of knew there was going to be some action here. And Balcer yells at me, Mac, get over here. And I can see this big Duluth pack at his feet. And I'm looking at this and I have the light bulb moment of, oh, shoot. That's the load. That's the load that my dad was talking about. And there's no way. I'm looking at this pack. I'm looking at myself. I'm going, I don't care if the portage is 5 miles or 5 feet. I can't carry that thing. But sure enough, I get over there and spin around, and Troy throws this Duluth on me. I got the tump line on and I'm going, and maybe I make it 5 feet. Maybe, and boom, down. Balcer's right behind me, picks me up and gets me going again. And, I'm thinking to myself, there is no way I can't make it across this portage. I can't do this. I'm not big enough. I'm not strong enough. This is too hard. There's mosquitoes everywhere. This is the worst thing that's ever happened to me, is this stupid Duluth pack. Well, I keep going, I fall, Troy comes behind me, picks me up, and eventually Troy's gone, everyone's gone. And I'm on this trail. And, eventually Balcer gets back to me and picks me up one more time and says, hey, Mac, everyone's across. Let me take the pack. Let me take the pack so we're not holding everyone up. And, probably with tears in my eyes, I look at Troy and say, I can't give you this pack. My dad made me promise that I would carry my load. And, I don't know if it took me an hour or a day, but eventually I found my way to the end of that portage trail. And, parts of that story, I have to be honest, I aren't fully memories. Troy actually was the best man at my wedding. And, he told that story after at the reception at the party. And, so that's my first memory is being challenged, the legacy, the shoes that I had to fill, the responsibility that I felt to my family and to the people that I was with on that canoe trip, and really accomplishing something that I didn't think I could do. And that's one of those things, Hugh, when you and I talk about how much this place means to me and how impactful it's been on my life. Every challenge that I had in my professional career, hey, Jim, we want you to go to South America and develop business for NRS. don't speak very good Spanish, and I don't know anybody in San Jose, Costa Rica, but I'll get my pack to the other side. And so that for me is I think the first memory really for me that I've held in my heart and has been with me every step of the way my entire life.
That's a great story. Awesome story, Jim. In fact, for the long time, one of the lines in our value statements was carry your weight. So that resonates. Absolutely. Okay. So taking that one step farther, tell me your best memory of your time at camp.
Oh, wow. My best memory, and I have so many of them, but my best memories from my time at camp probably is, one of my best mentors and dearest friends in my life was Tim Heinle, of course. And that's I could tell Tim Heinle stories for days, but, I, like a lot of guys, grew up at camp, and, the plaques on the wall in the lodge were this list of names that were, in my mind, I mean, these people were icons. They were bigger than life. And, I remember when Tim Heinle came to me and after the process of then Meday, now Astra, I'll never forget seeing Tim's face with his Michigan hat and him looking at me in the face and saying, "Congratulations, son, you've made Meday." And that was one of those things for me that was a goal that I had in my life, and all the things that go into the service societies, the honor societies up at Kooch-i-ching, the making Astra was a huge deal, but all of the different projects that we did around camp, building docks, building diving boards, I can tell you, I parred more buildings on that island than most people could ever count. And being a part of that, being able to know that for eternity, my name is on a plaque in that lodge, that for me was one of the proudest moments of my childhood, and again was one of those things for me, feeling the sense of accomplishment, a goal that you set out to do, that many hundreds and hundreds of incredibly intelligent, tough, hardworking guys that I respected more than anything came up short. And for me to, cross that finish line, I think was one of those moments in my life that I floated around on clouds for a year after that. I think I got made fun of quite a bit. I walked around camp with no shirt on, with my chest emblazoned for end of the summer. It's freezing cold, rain. Like, no, I don't need a shirt. I'm good. So I think I'd have to put that up there. And there is a long list, but I think I'd have to put that up there with one of my best memories of the camp is that and Tim.
Okay. Well, and you mentioned one aspect of that whole process, which is the service work. And I think that's something that parents start to understand very quickly, just how much we are a part of a larger community and how so much the place runs based on all the work that we put into it in the service. And I think the honor societies are a huge part of that. So I appreciate that memory. I think this next one you kind of already answered, but I'm going to ask it anyway, just to give you an opportunity to go into it a little bit further. But tell me about your biggest role model.
Oh, yeah, that's Tim Heinle for sure. I guess two people. I'm gonna cheat and give you two. Number one is my mom. My mother is a saint. Coles knows my brother, Michael Armstrong. Shout out, Mikey. And my mother to deal with my father, who is, a million miles a minute, every second of every day, me and my brother, she should be sainted. No person should have to deal with three MacAllister boys under one roof ever in their lives. So that woman is truly an icon of patience and love and faith. And she has always been my greatest cheerleader and one of my greatest friends. So my mother definitely has to be at the very top of that list. And then no question, number two is Tim Heinle. Tim was for all of us. And I'm speaking right now, I know for a lot of young men who grew up on that island at the same time that I did. Tim Heinle was one of these guys who all of my memories of Tim, for whatever reason, he's got a shovel in his hand. I mean, I can't see Tim, or a tennis racket, I guess, but I can't see Tim without a shovel. And so, he, for me, was one of those people, as I grew up and took on management roles and leadership roles in business, I always went back to Tim. And he was one of those leaders who would never, ever ask you to do something that he wasn't also willing to do, or wasn't also in that pit with you, digging that hole, or standing on that ladder, parring that building right next to you. He really, really, for me, taught me what it looked like to be a man. He really embodied, when we talk about the law of the woods, speak true, word of honor is sacred, be kind, do at least one act of unbargaining service each day. I mean, these are things Tim lived that. And he made the people around him live that. And there aren't that many people like that. I've had amazing mentors. I've been surrounded by incredible human beings my entire life, but Tim, they broke the mold. He was not only the hardest working guy and the most sincere guy that you ever came across, but he was also somebody that you never wanted to let down. I remember, like all of us, maybe not all of us, but certainly, when I was 13, 14, 15 years old, I was dumb and I made bad choices, Hugh. And I'll never, ever, ever forget one time getting called up into Tim's office, and I'm sitting in that chair, and you feel like you're about this big, right, when you're in trouble with Tim. And I'm sitting in that chair, and he didn't. All he had to say to me was, "I'm really disappointed in you." And that was like, the worst thing that anyone could ever say to me is, Tim's disappointed in you. And he was just an incredible friend, an incredible mentor. He really, really took care of everybody. And in terms of a role model, it's crazy to even say it, but when I think of what this job looks like when done right, Tim Heinle's the first role model that really comes to mind.
That's beautiful.
Yep.
Okay, so a few more. What is the most important thing that you want the camp family to know about Jim McAllister?
Oh, wow. This place is in my heart. The fiber, the fabric of Camp Kooch-i-ching is ingrained in who I am. It is the most authentic thing I've ever done. I've never, ever cared about any job that I've ever had. And I've loved the places I've worked for, but I've never cared about anything as much as I care about camp. All of my closest friends and their families are all from camp. And so I think that the most important thing for people to know is that I take this job incredibly seriously. And I have such a tremendous amount of respect for all the people that came before me. And I know I have a lot to learn, and I'm going to stumble along the way, and I'm going to make mistakes, and I'm going to need to lean on you, certainly Hugh, and you, Coles, and a lot of other amazing people out there. But the most important thing is for people to know is that this is who I am in my heart, and this place made me this man, and I owe a debt of gratitude that I will never, ever be able to repay. But I'm going to make it my life's mission every single day for the rest of my life to live up to that. And, I had people at camp who reached out and picked me up when I fell, people who were there for me when I needed them most. I mean, really needed people. When John passed, it was one of the most devastating things that had ever happened to me as a young person, and the camp community and the way that everyone circled the wagons. And, there's so much love in my heart for this place. And I will never, ever, ever rest or take a day off knowing that there's always work to be done. There's always a kiddo who needs somebody. There's always a staff guy who maybe, is having a rough day, needs somebody to talk to. This is not just a job. This is, I told my wife, a lifestyle that we're stepping into. This isn't something that you wake up and, punch a clock or get to your desk and turn on the computer. This is something that you live and you breathe. And I've had the Law of the Woods on my wall in my office forever. It's traveled with me throughout my entire career. It's always been my foundation. My guiding set of principles and ethics has always been the Law of the Woods. And it has taken on a whole new life and a magnitude that means more now than it ever has. And it's always meant a lot, but it means more today and yesterday and tomorrow than it ever has. And I know that trying to step into these shoes, I am not a big enough man to fill Tim Heinle's shoes, but I'm going to fight and scratch and claw and work every day to make sure that I'm the best version of myself, because that's what I owe. And when the community, the hiring committee decided that they were going to offer me this job, that's my promise to them. And that's my promise to every mom, every dad, every staff guy, every kid that ever comes up to Camp Kooch-i-ching. I owe them that. I owe them being my very best every second of every day. And that's a tall order. And I don't know that I'm up to it right now, but I sure as heck am going to fight and make sure that I do my darndest to get there.
So this question goes out to all of those moms, especially. If Jim McAllister could go back and talk to his 8-year-old self, what would he tell him about Camp Kooch-i-ching?
I think he would tell that kid, be yourself. Camp is a melting pot of so many different people, and people from all over the country, people from all over the world, with all different socioeconomic backgrounds, with all different lived experiences. And I was myself at camp. I never, ever went 98%. It was always 100%. Just go, be yourself, run like crazy, polar bear every morning, go out for all the honor societies, take all those classes that you were unsure of, be brave enough to sign up for that extra hard canoe trip. Just don't hold back. Put all of it in, because the community that's around you there, they know you're going to stumble. They know you're going to fall. And that's why they're there. They're there to pick you back up, and they're there to build you back up. And so I would tell that 8-year-old kid, first of all, write more letters to your mother. And second of all, I would tell that kid, go get it, baby. Get some on you. Don't be afraid to get dirty and get some on you, because those are the greatest years of my life. It's funny, as a 46-year-old man who's had a lot of experiences in this world, older folks, people my age now, tell young kids all the time, do it while you're young. And I remember people saying that to me and thinking to myself, like, why now? I got all the time in the world. And it turns out you don't. And so I would tell that kid, go get it, baby. Go absolutely get it. No holds barred. That's your place, to leave all of the restrictions behind and to just dive in, roll your sleeves up and get it all over you, because the people around you are going to support you and love you, and no judgment, right? Anyone who's ever been on a canoe trip knows this to be universally true, that you can't really know somebody, and you can't really know who they are at their core until they're challenged and until they're down. And it's freezing cold and it's pouring rain and my sleeping bag is wet and my socks are wet and my boots are wet and my raincoat sucks and I don't want to go, but you do. and everyone around you does, and you're in that together. And that sense of community and camaraderie and love, that sense of achievement that you build together. That's what I would tell that kid is no holds barred, man. Don't slow down. Just go get it.
Awesome. All right. Last one. I know how excited you are for Boys of Winter. I know the guys are up there getting ready to embrace you, and I'm sure you guys will share a few blue pops. I know that. But tell me what you're most excited about this summer. What are you most excited about?
I'm most excited to start to build relationships. As I said, the most important relationships in my life, the people that I've leaned on when, the going gets tough, are all camp people. And I've been removed, and all my contemporaries, a lot of the people that I grew up with at camp are gone now, right? Or they're around, but they're doing other things. They're raising families, and they're involved in their professional lives. And so I now have this amazing opportunity to go back and reconnect and build all of these relationships with this now generation. All of these kids who are preps now, who all my relationships, I want to be lifelong. I want to connect with these families on a level that they feel like they've been given this huge bear hug and brought into Camp Kooch-i-ching. I want them to feel like they are a part of a family, because one of the things that we have is this incredible network of humans that exist all over the country, all around the world, that are all camp people. And it doesn't matter who they are. It doesn't matter if they were at camp 30 years before you or 30 years after you. Kooch-i-ching is this universal bond. And so the thing I'm most excited about is meeting this new generation, all of the leaders that have stepped up, guys who came up, like me, were preps, juniors, intermediate, seniors, and are now the staff. They're now the people leading the organization. That's what I'm most excited for, is connecting with those guys, connecting with all of these families, connecting with all of these campers, and starting to make sure that they feel that and really understand that you're part of something that is so big and so important. And so that for me is the thing that I just can't wait for. As I said, I've had already some just phenomenal conversations with some moms and dads out there over the course of the last couple of days, and getting to meet their sons is going to be just phenomenal. Getting to meet the sons of some of the kids that I grew up with. I talked to Adam Nix yesterday, who I haven't talked to Adam Nix in probably 25 years. He's sending his two sons up to camp for the first time this summer, and I get to be a part of that. Our friend Mike Walsh, obviously his son's up at camp. I get to be a part of that. Vandenberg. I mean, there's so many guys I grew up with who their sons are now there. And in many cases, they're now seniors or CITs or staff guys, and having the opportunity to get to know them and to get to understand camp through their experiences, that for me, I absolutely cannot wait to get to know all these people and get to start to build more relationships, and really just roll my sleeves up. And again, same comment as that 8-year-old kid, just get some on me. Can't wait to just fully be immersed in camp. As you can tell, I love camp so much. My summers at Kooch were the greatest things of my entire life, and getting to go back to camp as a 46-year-old is an absolute dream. So that for me is definitely what I'm most excited about.
Well, we got some Heinle shovels that are stored away for you. So I guarantee you're going to get some
Let's
on
go.
you. One thing you said, Jim, that I absolutely relate to is when I first came back, is I had some kids on my trip that were sons of my contemporaries when I was at camp. And that is so rewarding to watch that process and come full circle. So, Jeff, I'm going to turn it back over to you. But on behalf of all of us, Jim, we are so excited to have you on board, have you in this role, and excited to watch you get some on you.
Thank you, my friend. I am so humbled and so honored to be in this seat. It is absolutely amazing. So thank you for this opportunity. Thank you. I could not possibly be more grateful.
You're welcome.
Well, Hugh, those are great. I mean, the answers were great, Jim, and it gave, I think, a lot of our viewers and listeners, a great look inside of Jim McAllister. And I don't know if this is the right place to do this or not, but what the heck, I'll do it anyway. just listening to you talk there, you brought up some great points, and the respect that you have for the people before you, I think, is incredible. And I think that's a great trait for you at your stage. Anybody at any stage, there's still a great deal of respect I have for so many people at that place. And you talked a lot about Tim Heinle and, how hard his shoes are going to be to fill. And I know Tim very well, as you well know, the family very well. And I'm going to throw a comment that you just threw out to your 8-year-old self. I'm going to throw back at you, because I know Tim would say this to you, Jim. I know he would say this, and I could hear him saying it. And as much as you would love to fill his shoes, don't just be Jim McAllister. Don't worry about being Tim. He's given you the tools. Troy has given you the tools. Your parents have given you the tools. Your life has given you the tools. You've got great enthusiasm. You're going to do well, Jim. Just be Jim McAllister and don't worry about anything. That doesn't mean you don't have to disrespect anybody that was before you, but just be yourself, buddy. Believe me, and you're going to do really well. And we're all here to support you. And this is great excitement that's going on at Camp Kooch right now. And I can't wait to see what happened in years to come. So you're going to do great, buddy. You really are.
Thank you, Coles.
We're happy to have you.
Thank you, Coles.
Yeah.
Thank you, my friend.
Yep.
Appreciate it. It's
right,
it's amazing.
Hey, yep. I appreciate you coming on. We can't wait. I can't wait to catch up with you some more and continue to work with you. And again, Hugh, thanks for joining today. And it was great to sit down talking with you, Jim.
Thank you so much. Thank you, guys. I cannot tell you how grateful I am for this opportunity. Every day is just been absolutely phenomenal. So thank you.
Yep.